I'm Darshak Patel, a lecturer at University of Kentucky. Today I'll be talking to you about using popular media to teach economics, mainly ESPN 30 for 30 and Shark Tank. Typically as an instructor, as well as many instructors, we try to find ways to increase student interest in economics and hopefully enhance or hopefully show them the relevance of economics in the real world. A lot of faculty members have also started using active learning activities to increase student engagement with the hope that students retain the economic concepts, as well as enhances their learning experiences in the classrooms. So one thing we're going to do is we've ended up using a lot of social popular media in terms of increasing student engagement. One thing we want to do is we want to show economics extends beyond graphing and mathematical models, especially for non-econ majors, so we can attract them to the major. So what have you used? A lot of economists have used literature, poem, have used music, but popular media has also taken off. And what we have initially been seeing is we've seen a lot of Simpson and Seinfeld. A lot of economists have worked on the Big Bang Theory, The Office. I know a few of them are working on Parks and Recreation. There's already someone working on Breaking Bad. When I was teaching at University of Tennessee at Martin, the most popular show up there was Duck Dynasty. And I used quite a few clips of Duck Dynasty as well. So let's talk about what ESPN 30 for 30 and Shark Tank are about. So ESPN 30 for 30. This series was created to celebrate ESPN's 30-year anniversary. So what they did was they asked 30 producers or directors to produce movies concerning any social issue that connects to them. The social issue could be anything to do with something from their town, a country, a sports person, and they have to connect it to sports some way or the other. The number one thing that comes on the faculty's mind is that sports will attract a very narrow and specific audience. You know, you'll get this really big sports fanatic who are willing to engage with you, whereas the other ones will be sit back and maybe not interested. However, if anybody's watched ESPN for 30, you'll realize that it is not all about sports. A lot of social issues are covered, such as discrimination, immigration, war, drugs, and so on. So here's a couple of examples. ESPN 30 for 30 broke, talks about how football players made bad decisions, financial decisions, and eventually ended up becoming broke. The two Escobars, one of my favorites, talks about the two Escobars, one is the drug lord and one's a soccer player, and talks about how, it talks about the drug problem in Colombia. And it uses the idea of soccer clubs because a lot of drug money was funneled through soccer teams. And so that's how they connected that. Shark Tank. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you have watched Shark Tank. It's a popular ABC show where you see a lot of innovators who come up with the ideas to potential investors to ensure that, hoping that they would invest in their company. The simulation application of this show has taken off tremendously. It's already been picked up by elementary schools, high schools, colleges, MBA programs. There's this one example where one elementary school told their students to find issues wrong with the school, come up with solutions, and then do a Shark Tank simulation and presentation talking about the solution. So it's definitely taken off. So one of the benefits of Shark Tank, it doesn't need much background information. If you think about other shows, sometimes you're going to have some students who are lost because they do not watch those shows. And you have to tell them about the character. You might have to give them a bit of a heads up in terms of what the clip is going to entail. One thing with Shark Tank is every presentation is going to be unique on its own because they're going to be new innovators introducing their product or service. And someone can easily watch the clip and fall into it in terms of understanding what's going on. The simulations really make the students remember the concepts. It works really, really well. And the best of all, they can see the economic principles in a real-world scenario. So Shark Tank has been really, really popular in my classrooms. So the way I use this pedagogy is basically I introduce the concept first. Once I introduce the concept, we do a little discussion, then I introduce the clip, and then either ask the students to discuss among themselves whether they can find any connections based on the concepts, or I can ask them to write something about it, or I sometimes ask them to tweet about it. At the end of the day, it depends on the instructor the faculty member, the instructor. It depends on how they want to manage their classrooms. But overall, I've had great engagement with the students based on this approach. So let's take a minute and look at the two Escobars. Typically, we try to tell them to list all economic concepts, and then we also talk about whether there's an invisible wall that is trapping people in the poverty. If there is one, what is it? So we have a really great discussion on that. We also talk about whether we can fix the inequality problem. How can we fix the inequality problem? Talk about how charity or poverty could be an issue of a public good, and so on. So there are plenty of discussions from that video that comes up. Now Shark Tank to show you how that's connected to economics. The follow-up discussions will be the difference between short run versus long run, talk about variable versus fixed costs. I also ask students to tell me what other costs would be incurred if you had to run daisy cakes, and then I ask them to categorize them to fixed or variables. It's also one of the popular ones that goes well with my students. So overall, I feel that these videos are really helpful in terms of engaging students. It just provides another resource that you could add in engaging students. And the whole overall goal is hoping that students would have a deeper understanding on economic concepts. Thank you.